Introduction. Friends, if you are looking for a super fun, colorful, and musical animated adventure to enjoy, then Rio 2 is the perfect movie for you. If you are visiting our channel for the very first time, make sure you stay connected with us because today's video is going to be filled with exciting details and surprising facts. Friends, in today's video we are going to dive into the world of Rio 2, a movie that takes you on a wild journey through the Amazon rainforest, packed with laughter, rhythm, and unforgettable characters. We will explore what this movie is all about, how it continues the story from the first part, and what new adventures are waiting for Blue, Jewel, and their family. We will not only talk about the plot but also tell you exactly where you can watch Rio 2. Whether you are searching for it on your favorite OTT platform or wondering if it's available on any satellite TV channels, I will provide you with complete details on how to catch this vibrant film from the comfort of your home. You will know which streaming services you can visit to watch the movie anytime you want. We will also take a closer look at the technical side of this film, including the beautiful animation, the sound design, and the incredible work that went into making each scene come alive with colors and motion. The music in Rio 2 is something very special, filled with catchy songs and rhythms that will make you want to dance, and we will talk about how the music was created and who worked behind the scenes to bring this lively soundtrack to life. I will also share all the behind-the-scenes details about the pre-production journey, how the story was planned, how the characters were designed, and the massive effort that went into filming and post-production. We will go deep into the budget of the film, how much money was spent to make it look this fantastic, and how much it earned at the box office. We will see how audiences around the world responded to Rio 2, and whether it managed to capture their hearts as much as the first movie did. Along with this, I will also give you a short review of the story to give you an idea of what exciting moments and challenges Blue and his family faced this time around. We will explore some of the most interesting and fun facts about the film that you may not have heard before. I will tell you about the complete storyline, the characters, and the voice actors who brought these animated birds, animals, and jungle creatures to life. You will get to know who played which role, and how their performances added charm and personality to each character. So friends, I request you to stay with me till the very end of the video because this is going to be an entertaining and informative ride that you don't want to miss. So, let's begin this fun journey into the world of Rio 2. The story of Rio 2 bursts to life with a colorful, musical celebration in Rio de Janeiro, where Blue and Jewel are now raising their 3 lively children. Their family life is cozy, a little chaotic, but full of love and urban comfort. Blue, the domesticated city bird, feels completely at home with his pancakes, GPS, and his human-like habits. Jewel, on the other hand, starts to feel that their children are growing up too far from their true roots. She believes the city can't teach them what it means to be wild, free, and connected to their natural heritage. This is the spark that pushes the entire family into the heart of the Amazon. When they hear that Linda and Tulio, their human friends, may have discovered a hidden population of blue macaws deep in the jungle, Jewel seizes the chance to explore this unknown part of their world. Blue reluctantly agrees to the adventure, even though he's terrified of leaving behind everything familiar. He packs his fanny pack, his trusty GPS, and a whole lot of snacks, fully expecting to be the odd bird out in the wild. As the family soars into the jungle, the story immediately picks up speed with stunning visuals, breathtaking landscapes, and a string of new challenges. The Amazon is a place full of surprises, and Blue's city smarts don't always help him in this untamed paradise. The kids are thrilled by the freedom, but Blue is constantly worried about jungle dangers, wild animals, and worst of all, losing control. The first major turning point comes when the family stumbles upon a hidden tribe of blue macaws, who have been living safely away from humans all this time. Blue is completely out of his depth here. And to make things even more complicated, the leader of this tribe is Jewel's long-lost father. Blue now feels like he's not just a visitor, but an intruder in his own family's world. Jewel is delighted to reconnect with her roots and her father, while Blue awkwardly tries to fit in with the jungle birds who see him as soft, spoiled, and hilariously unprepared for jungle life. This is where the story kicks into a rhythm of cultural clash and self-discovery. Blue struggles to earn respect in this new environment where toughness and survival skills are celebrated. He competes with Roberto, Jewel's childhood friend, who seems perfect in every way, brave, strong, smooth-talking, and a natural leader. Blue feels more and more like he doesn't belong, but his love for Jewel and his kids keeps him going. Meanwhile, trouble is brewing in the shadows. Nigel, the vengeful cockatoo who survived his dramatic fall in the first film, is back with a brand new plan. This time, he's even more dramatic, fueled by revenge, and joined by Gabi, a tiny but dangerously poisonous frog who is hopelessly in love with him. Nigel's antics add a hilarious yet threatening edge to the story as he tracks Blue and plots his perfect revenge. His theatrical personality and Gabi's undying love for him create some of the most comically villainous moments in the film. As the family navigates jungle life and Blue fights to prove himself, another big conflict emerges. Humans have entered the Amazon, cutting down the forest and threatening the blue macaw's home. This isn't just a family story anymore. It's about saving their entire species and preserving the rainforest. Blue must find the courage to unite the macaw tribe and lead them into a stand against the loggers. In the middle of all this, he still has to face Nigel, who shows up in a wild showdown that tests Blue's bravery and quick thinking. The emotional weight of the story keeps building as Blue learns that he doesn't need to change who he is to be a hero. His city smarts, his loyal heart, and his quirky problem-solving become his greatest strengths. He slowly earns the respect of Jewel's father, and shows his children what real courage looks like. The narrative is filled with bright, musical set pieces that are not just entertaining, but also move the story forward. From jungle soccer matches to thrilling river escapes and musical showdowns, the story keeps jumping from one high-energy moment to another while never losing sight of its emotional core. The film follows a mostly linear structure, but it cleverly weaves together different threads: Blue's family adventure, Nigel's revenge plot, and Linda and Tulio's desperate efforts to stop the illegal loggers. These storylines run side by side, sometimes crashing into each other, sometimes growing quietly in the background, but always feeding into the larger story about family, identity, and protecting what matters most. What makes the plot so engaging is how it mixes humor, action, and heartfelt family moments. Each of Blue's missteps, whether he's trying to eat Brazil nuts the wrong way or getting tangled in jungle vines, is funny on the surface but always ties back to his deeper struggle to fit in. The story is a bright dance between comedy and challenge, where every colorful scene pushes Blue closer to realizing that his love for his family and his unique perspective are what truly make him strong. The jungle may not be his natural home, but the people he loves are, and that's where his courage shines. The playful rhythm of the film, the unforgettable musical numbers, and the constant tug-of-war between city life and jungle freedom create a story that is full of fun, heart, and vibrant energy from start to finish. In Rio 2, the charm of the story doesn't just come from the stunning visuals or the catchy music. It comes from the way the characters grow, clash, stumble, and transform throughout the wild journey. Each character is crafted with layers of personality, conflict, and humor that bring depth to what could have simply been a light-hearted animated sequel. Blue, the city bird turned family man, takes center stage as a brilliantly written example of uncomfortable growth. At the start, Blue is still the slightly nervous, gadget-loving macaw who would much rather rely on his GPS and a pocket full of supplies than trust his instincts. His comfort zone is a life of pancakes, toasters, and neatly planned days in Rio de Janeiro. But life has a way of pulling him in unexpected directions, and Blue is forced into the jungle, a place where nothing is neat, controlled, or predictable. Blue's development is slow, awkward, and absolutely fun to watch because he doesn't simply become the typical brave hero overnight. He's clumsy in the jungle. He overpacks for a bird. He panics over wild berries. And yet he never gives up. He's motivated by love for his family and the desire to keep them safe, even when the jungle seems to mock him at every turn. His journey is one of quiet courage, learning that real bravery comes from accepting his own quirky strengths, even when they don't match the jungle's definition of toughness. Blue's transformation is powerful because he never fully changes into what others expect him to be. Instead, he grows into the best version of himself by trusting that his differences have value. Jewel, on the other hand, is driven by a deep connection to her wild roots. For her, the jungle is more than a place. It's where she belongs, where her identity was formed, and where her family's story began. Jewel's arc is about returning to that world and sharing it with her children. She is confident, skilled, and at home in the trees, but her development comes from rediscovering her family's history and reconnecting with the father she believed was lost forever. Her emotional journey is subtle but essential. She realizes that her past and present are both part of who she is, and that her children can carry both the freedom of the jungle and the wonder of the city within them. Her relationship with Blue also matures through the story. She loves him, but she is sometimes frustrated by his cautious, overly prepared ways. Their dynamic becomes richer as she learns to see the quiet heroism in his actions, and Blue grows to trust her instincts. The children, Carla, Bia, and Tiago, are delightful bursts of energy and curiosity. Each of them has a distinct spark. Carla is musically inclined, Bia is brilliantly book-smart, and Tiago is the wild explorer with no fear. They are caught between their father's city world and their mother's jungle heritage, and their playful rebellion against Blue's constant worrying shows how kids naturally chase adventure, no matter how carefully their parents try to guide them. Their journey is about freedom, discovery, and finding joy in embracing both sides of their identity. Watching them bond with their jungle family and experience life beyond Rio adds an extra layer of heart to the film. Nigel, the flamboyant villain, returns with even more theatrical flair. He's obsessed with revenge against Blue, but his over-the-top personality makes him comical rather than purely menacing. Nigel's development is not about redemption. He is fully committed to his role as the dramatic antagonist, but his journey is laced with humor and eccentricity. His bitterness fuels his performance-driven plans, and his bizarre alliance with Gabi, the poisonous frog, creates some of the film's most hilarious moments. Gabi's character is particularly memorable. She is tiny, deadly, and hopelessly in love with Nigel, despite his total lack of interest in her affection. Her fierce devotion, combined with her constant heartbreak over being untouchable, gives her surprising depth. She believes she is cursed to love from a distance, but her intense passion makes her unforgettable. Her story is comical, dramatic, and oddly touching, especially when her affection for Nigel pushes her to the brink of emotional disaster. Jules' father is another complex figure. As the proud leader of the hidden Blue Macaw tribe, he carries the weight of tradition and the responsibility of protecting his people. His initial disappointment in Blue is written all over his stern, skeptical expressions. He sees Blue as soft, too attached to human ways, and unfit for the jungle. But as the story unfolds, his guarded heart begins to shift. Slowly, he sees Blue's love for his family and his unorthodox problem-solving as real strengths. Their relationship is built through mutual challenges, moments of conflict, and finally, earned respect. It's not a simple bonding story. It's layered with tension, misunderstanding, and finally, reluctant admiration that grows into something more genuine. Even the side characters like Nico, Pedro, and Rafael continue to shine. They don't go through dramatic personal growth, but their energy and loyalty are essential to the story's rhythm. Their playful banter, musical hunts, and comic relief moments keep the film bright and lively. They also act as Blue's bridge to the world outside his immediate family, pulling him into the wider social fabric of the jungle and the carnival spirit that they bring with them wherever they go. Each character's journey is tightly connected to the central themes of family, identity, and belonging. Blue's insecurity, Jules' reconnection to her past, the children's discovery of their roots, Nigel's hunger for revenge, Gabi's unshakable crush, and the tribe's fight to save their home all weave together to shape the story. The characters' arcs push the narrative forward, not just through action, but through their emotional growth and their changing relationships. They are constantly bouncing off one another, challenging each other, and learning, sometimes through hilarious failures and sometimes through brave, quiet victories. The beauty of Rio 2 lies in how these characters don't just serve the story, they are the story. Their growth, their clashing personalities, and their colorful journeys create a lively, heartfelt, and endlessly entertaining world where everyone has something to learn, something to prove, and something worth flying for. The performances in Rio 2 don't just add sound to colorful animation. They create entire personalities, vibrant relationships, and emotional layers that make the film soar far beyond a simple visual spectacle. Each actor doesn't just voice a character. They completely own them, filling the story with humor, heart, energy, an emotional weight that feels alive in every moment. Blue's performance is a shining example of detailed voice work that brings out all the quirks and insecurities of this lovable, city-raised macaw. His every line is laced with that signature nervous energy, whether he's worrying about jungle safety, overthinking social situations, or panicking over the absence of modern conveniences. The actor's delivery captures Blue's tendency to ramble, to nervously plan for every unlikely danger, and to rely on gadgets instead of instincts. His voice is the heartbeat of the story's humor, but also the emotional core that carries his journey from fearful outsider to a bird who finds courage on his own terms. There's a constant tug-of-war in his tone, between his love for his family and his discomfort in the wild. And that makes his character feel layered and real. Jewel's performance complements Blue beautifully. She brings a calm strength and natural grace to every scene, with a tone that feels adventurous, confident, and deeply connected to her roots. Her voice holds a quiet authority that Blue clearly respects, but also gently pushes against. Her delivery isn't loud or commanding, it's firm and sure, like someone who knows who she is and where she belongs. Through her performance, you can feel Jewel's longing to reconnect with her family and the wild, but you also hear her deep, steady love for Blue and their life together. The chemistry between Jewel and Blue's voices is playful and affectionate. They bicker, they tease, they support each other. And even when they're at odds, you never doubt the bond they share. Their voice actors bring out the spark of a couple who are learning, growing, and navigating a new world together. The performances of the three macaw children, Carla, Bia, and Tiago, add layers of youthful energy and authenticity. Carla's cool, music-loving vibe comes through with ease, Bia's sharp intelligence is laced into her precise and curious tone, and Tiago's untamed enthusiasm bursts out in nearly every line. They sound like real siblings, full of playful rivalry, mini rebellions, and that joyful habit of pushing their parents' buttons just for fun. Their voices are bright, distinct, and filled with the natural rhythms of kids exploring new territory and challenging boundaries. Nigel's performance is an absolute showstopper. He doesn't just speak. He performs with grand, exaggerated flair, turning every sentence into a dramatic monologue. His voice actor leans fully into Nigel's theatrical style, dripping each line with bitterness, self-importance, and twisted humor. Whether Nigel is singing his over-the-top villain anthem or plotting revenge with exaggerated pauses and sharp sarcasm, his voice performance makes him larger than life. Nigel isn't simply a villain. He's a villain who believes he's the lead actor in his own grand play. His voice work is so rich with theatrical energy that even his smallest grumbles are packed with personality. Gabi, the tiny but wildly passionate poison dart frog, steals scenes with her emotional intensity. Her voice swings from sweetly obsessed to heartbreakingly tragic to comically dangerous within a single breath. Her performer delivers every word with a desperate kind of energy that makes her impossible to ignore. Gabi's performance doesn't hold back. When she declares her love for Nigel, it's with an almost operatic level of passion, and when she's struck by the sadness of being poisonous, the heartbreak feels oddly genuine. The tiny size of her character paired with such a powerful, dramatic voice creates a hilarious contrast that makes Gabi's scenes unforgettable. She is constantly teetering between comic relief and sincere tragedy, and her performance manages to make both feel real. Jewel's father brings a completely different energy to the film. His voice carries wisdom, pride, and the weight of leadership. His initial skepticism towards Blue is sharp and immediate. You can hear it in the slight edge in his voice, in the pauses where he clearly doesn't know what to make of this soft, city bird who can't crack a Brazil nut properly. But as the story progresses, the voice softens, shifts, and finds quiet moments of respect and trust. The performer's subtle changes in tone make the evolution of their relationship believable and touching. It's not a big, dramatic transformation. It's a slow, careful warming that feels earned. The supporting cast keeps the rhythm alive. Nico, Pedro, and Rafael return with their irresistible charm and quick-witted banter. Their voices keep the musical energy of the first film alive, and their non-stop enthusiasm adds an extra spark to every scene they touch. Their comic timing is sharp, their delivery feels spontaneous, and their interactions feel like a group of friends who know exactly how to keep the party going, no matter where they are, even in the middle of the jungle. Linda and Tulio, the human duo, also bring warmth and determination through their performances. Though they don't dominate the screen time, their voices carry enough sincerity and drive to make their efforts to save the rainforest feel genuinely important. They aren't just side characters. They bring a human connection to the story's environmental message. The way the entire voice cast works together is what makes Rio 2 so lively. The actors don't just read lines. They embody these birds, frogs, and humans with all the emotion, humor, and spontaneity that makes the jungle feel like a living, breathing world. They hit the big moments with dramatic flair, but they also capture the small, quiet beats, nervous mumbling, tender encouragement, playful teasing, that make the relationships feel real. The voices give life to the humor, build the tension, deepen the emotion, and carry the musical heartbeat of the film. Every performance is a carefully balanced blend of fun, sincerity, and character-driven energy, creating a world where the voices don't just match the animation, they define it. The direction of Rio 2 feels like steering a ship through a musical, high-speed, colorful river where every turn splashes a new burst of energy, humor, and heart onto the screen. The director doesn't simply guide the story along a straight path. The entire journey is shaped to feel like a living, breathing carnival, where the mood, tone, and rhythm all move in sync with the heartbeat of the film. Right from the opening sequence, the director sets the stage with a bold choice. Let the city of Rio come alive with music, let the birds dance through the sky, and let the colors explode. The tone is immediately joyful, warm, and full of promise. The director leans into the celebration of life in a way that feels bigger than just the story. It's an invitation to experience something joyful, something that sings and moves in a way that never stands still. The pacing throughout the film is a delicate dance. The director never allows the story to sit in one place for too long. As soon as a quiet, emotional moment finds its place, the rhythm shifts again, rolling into the next playful jungle mishap, a daring chase, a hilarious misunderstanding, or a musical number that bursts to life like the rainforest in full bloom. The speed isn't frantic, it's carefully controlled, moving just fast enough to keep the energy alive, but pausing long enough to let the audience feel the weight of family connections, personal growth, and moments of vulnerability. The director knows exactly when to slow down to let Blue's insecurities sink in, when to give Jewel space to reconnect with her past, and when to let the children's joy sweep the story forward. Visually, the director makes some remarkable choices. The shot composition in Rio 2 isn't just about filling the frame with color. It's about guiding the eye, creating scale, and making the audience feel the difference between the towering grandeur of the Amazon rainforest and the small, sometimes overwhelmed city bird who finds himself lost in it. The director uses sweeping aerial shots to emphasize the beauty and danger of the jungle, often pulling the camera back to show just how tiny Blue is in this vast, untamed world. These wide shots give the story an adventurous, almost epic feel. At the same time, the director frequently shifts to tighter, intimate shots, zooming in on Blue's flustered face, Jewel's warm but firm gaze, or the children's sparkling eyes as they discover the jungle's wonders. These shifts in scale constantly remind the audience of the personal stakes inside this big, colorful adventure. The jungle itself is treated like a character. The director keeps it alive in every frame. Sunlight filtering through the thick canopy, rivers twisting like glowing ribbons, animals darting and swinging through every corner of the screen. The Amazon is never still, never quiet. And the director makes sure that even in the background, the world is always moving, always filled with life. The way the director blends the beauty of the jungle with moments of humor and danger keeps the story playful, but never weightless. Even when the family is in trouble, the tone is kept light and engaging, the mood carefully steered to be fun and exciting rather than dark or frightening. The use of music is masterfully directed. The songs are not just inserted as breaks, they are woven into the fabric of the storytelling. Musical numbers are staged with grandeur, with the director making sure that each one feels like a natural, celebratory extension of the scene. Characters sing and dance not because they pause the story, but because music is how their world breathes. Whether it's a jungle jam, a theatrical villain anthem, or a spontaneous burst of song from supporting characters, the director gives each musical moment enough visual flair and emotional connection to carry the scene. The rhythm of the film never skips. Music pushes it forward as much as the action does. Comedy is handled with careful precision. The director understands that Blue's comedic potential lies in his awkwardness, his misplaced confidence, and his city habits clashing spectacularly with jungle life. Scenes of Blue overpacking for the jungle, misunderstanding jungle traditions, or getting hilariously tangled in vines are not random. They are staged, timed, and paced to land with the biggest laughs without feeling forced. Nigel's exaggerated villainy is directed with perfect theatrical timing, letting his performance walk the fine line between genuinely threatening and absolutely ridiculous. Gabi's dramatic love story is directed like a tiny soap opera inside the main plot, her wild emotional swings choreographed with perfect comedic beats that keep the audience entertained and oddly invested in her over-the-top passion. The director also knows how to weave the multiple storylines together with smooth transitions. Blue's family adventure, Nigel's revenge plot, and Linda and Tulio's rainforest mission are all given attention and weight, but the director cleverly bounces between them without losing the rhythm. Each thread builds toward the larger story without any one of them dragging or stalling. This constant movement creates a layered but easy-to-follow narrative where every piece feels connected. Whether it's a musical competition in the jungle, a daring escape from loggers, or a quiet moment of self-reflection by the riverbank. Stylistically, the director pushes for vibrant contrasts. The city of Rio is shown as a sea of sparkling lights, packed parades, and buzzing energy, while the Amazon bursts with lush greens, twisting vines, and wide-open skies. The director creates visual tension between these worlds, reinforcing Blue's internal conflict with every shot. Blue's gadgets and city habits are visually out of place in the jungle, and the director frames these moments to heighten both the humor and the underlying message of belonging and adaptation. The environmental themes are folded into the story with a light touch. The director does not slow the narrative to deliver heavy-handed messages about deforestation. Instead, the threats to the jungle are shown as real, but are kept in balance with the film's joyful tone. The loggers are villains, but the focus remains on the community's fight to protect their home rather than on bleak consequences. The director's choice to let this theme grow naturally from the characters' relationships to their environment keeps the film focused on connection, action, and celebration rather than preaching. Throughout the film, the director's hand is steady, guiding the audience through a world where every branch, beat, and bird is alive with energy. The pacing never lags, the humor stays sharp, the emotional beats land with sincerity, and the visual style feels like a constantly unfolding painting. The direction keeps the story layered but accessible, fast-paced but emotionally grounded, and always full of life. Every frame feels like part of the same rhythmic, musical, adventurous heartbeat that makes the world of Rio 2 so irresistible. The cinematography of Rio 2 is an endless, breathtaking parade of movement, color, and life that fills every frame with purpose and playful energy. In this animated world, cinematography doesn't rely on physical cameras, but the attention to visual storytelling is no less meticulous or impactful. Every choice in camera angle, lighting, and framing is used to pull the audience deeper into the rhythm of the story, to create emotion without saying a word, and to capture the contrast between the bustling city of Rio and the wild, sprawling magic of the Amazon rainforest. The film's cinematography is not static for even a second. It's a visual symphony that seems to dance right alongside the characters. In the opening scenes, the cinematography captures the energy of Rio de Janeiro with fast, sweeping, and joyous camera movements. The virtual camera glides over the vibrant city streets, spirals through the famous carnival celebrations, and soars effortlessly above the skyline to immediately immerse the audience in the musical heartbeat of this world. There's an exhilarating freedom in these wide, aerial shots. The camera becomes a bird itself, darting through the air, dipping, spinning, and weaving between the characters as if it's part of their flock. This isn't just a pretty introduction. It's a signal that the camera will always move with the characters, that the perspective will constantly shift to keep pace with their flight, their excitement, and their emotional journeys. When the story leaves the city and heads into the jungle, the cinematography changes in a way that feels both grand and intimate. The camera pulls back to reveal the enormity of the Amazon, showing sweeping panoramas of endless green canopies, glittering rivers, and shafts of golden sunlight piercing through the treetops. These wide shots give the jungle an overwhelming scale. It's breathtakingly beautiful, but also a reminder of how tiny Blue is in this wild, unfamiliar place. The cinematography uses this contrast masterfully, making the jungle feel majestic, but also intimidating. When Blue stands awkwardly among towering trees or clumsily navigates swinging vines, the shots often frame him as a small figure surrounded by the vastness of nature. These visual choices reinforce his feelings of displacement and uncertainty without needing any dialogue. The lighting in the jungle is alive. It changes constantly, sometimes soft and dreamy, sometimes dappled and fragmented, sometimes glowing and magical. The cinematography captures the way sunlight flickers through thick leaves, casting shifting patterns across the forest floor and onto the characters themselves. There are moments when the light creates almost painterly images, golden beams filtering through misty treetops, vibrant flowers catching the sun, sparkling reflections dancing on the water's surface. The cinematography makes the jungle pulse with light, like it's breathing right alongside the characters. This dynamic lighting gives the story its mood. It becomes playful during musical numbers, tense during chase scenes, and warm and gentle during family moments. One of the most visually striking techniques is the use of constant movement. The virtual camera never sits still. It glides alongside flying birds. It swings on vines with the jungle creatures. It zooms in during comedic mishaps, and it loops and swirls during musical performances. This fluid, graceful movement keeps the film feeling like one continuous, vibrant dance. The musical sequences, in particular, are visual marvels. The cinematography is staged like choreography. The camera spins, dives, and twirls through parades of birds, waterfalls, and tree branches, always moving in time with the music. The scenes feel like celebrations that completely pull the viewer into the moment. The director and cinematographer work together to make the camera part of the rhythm. It's not an observer, it's a dancer in the parade. When the story shifts to moments of conflict or danger, the cinematography adapts quickly. The framing tightens, the camera moves in closer, sometimes using quick pans, sharp cuts, and low angles to create a sense of urgency or tension. During the confrontations with the loggers, the camera movement becomes sharper and more aggressive, cutting rapidly between characters and pulling in tighter to build pressure. The lighting shifts as well. Brighter, more aggressive beams cut through the darkened jungle, creating stark contrasts that heighten the tension. Even during these moments, the cinematography maintains its visual clarity. The action is fast, but the shots are composed carefully so the audience never feels visually overwhelmed. The layering of depth within the shots is one of the film's most impressive cinematographic choices. The foreground, midground, and background are always filled with life. Leaves fluttering, animals moving, rivers flowing, birds flying in and out of the frame. These carefully constructed layers create a rich, three-dimensional world that feels fully alive, as if the story continues beyond what's in focus. Even when the main characters are center stage, the environment around them buzzes with its own rhythm. The cinematography makes sure that the Amazon never feels like an empty backdrop. It's a world packed with detail and constant motion. Certain key moments stand out visually in unforgettable ways. The reveal of the hidden blue macaw tribe is filmed with majestic patience. The camera floats slowly through the secret haven, gliding past families of birds, enormous tree roots, waterfalls, and sun-dappled clearings. The light here is softer, almost glowing, making the place feel sacred and untouched. The framing pulls wide to show the vast scale but also lingers on the small, quiet interactions. The way the macaws move, the way they live together in harmony, the way Blue's family finally begins to see themselves as part of something much bigger. This moment feels almost magical because the cinematography lets the beauty of the setting breathe without rushing. Nigel's villainous musical number is another standout. The cinematography transforms his scene into a full theatrical performance. The camera spins around him like a spotlight, the lighting sharpens dramatically, and every exaggerated movement is captured with flair and precision. The shots move with him, feeding his flair for drama and making his moments feel like a grand stage production. Gabi's scenes, too, are visually playful. Her tiny size is used brilliantly in the framing, often putting her in hilariously oversized environments, emphasizing her passionate but small presence in a world that seems too big for her. Throughout the film, the cinematography follows Blue's emotional arc with careful visual storytelling. When Blue is at his most anxious and out of place, the camera often shows him from a distance, dwarfed by the jungle, overwhelmed by the scale around him. As he grows in confidence, the camera gradually brings him closer, gives him more visual space, and eventually flies with him, no longer showing him as a misplaced outsider, but as a bird who finally belongs. This subtle shift in framing mirrors Blue's internal journey without ever needing to spell it out. The cinematography in Rio 2 is not just about creating pretty pictures. It's about making the audience feel the excitement, the nervousness, the wonder, and the pure joy of flying through this world. The editing and pacing of Rio 2 are like the film's invisible conductor, carefully orchestrating every moment to ensure the energy, humor, and emotion stay alive from the very first frame to the last beat. It's a film that refuses to sit still, and the editing fully embraces this momentum, crafting a rhythm that keeps the audience constantly engaged without ever feeling overwhelming or chaotic. The flow of Rio 2 is deliberately fast, but it's never careless. It's edited with a lively, playful hand that seems to understand the natural pulse of the story and the attention span of the audience. The cuts are sharp, quick, and precisely timed to maintain the joyful, celebratory mood that defines the film's world. But this isn't just a rush of colorful images. The editing is always guiding the viewer through the busy, layered visuals, making sure the story remains clear even when the scenes are filled with movement, background action, and energetic musical numbers. Right from the opening carnival sequence, the editing sets the pace. The cuts are brisk, bouncing between characters, capturing small moments of humor, flashing through the lively crowds, and swinging effortlessly from one shot to the next. The transitions between shots are smooth, often using natural movements, like a swooping bird or a flying object, to guide the viewer's eye seamlessly into the next scene. This approach creates a sense of constant motion, like the entire film is part of a single, sweeping dance. When the story shifts from the city of Rio to the Amazon rainforest, the editing softens slightly, allowing the grandeur and scale of the jungle to settle in. The cuts linger just a little longer on the beauty of the environment, giving the audience time to absorb the vastness and richness of this new world. But even in these quieter moments, the film never loses its pace. The editing doesn't drag or let the energy fade. It simply adjusts the rhythm to match the tone, slowing just enough to introduce wonder and curiosity before the next burst of action or humor takes over. The film's musical numbers are some of the best showcases of its tight, musical editing style. The cuts are deliberately timed to the beat of the songs, snapping from wide ensemble shots to playful close-ups, and weaving between characters with a rhythm that feels like it's part of the choreography. The camera spins and the edits keep up, making the audience feel like they are flying through the music alongside the characters. Even when the entire screen is packed with dozens of birds dancing, animals playing instruments, and jungle creatures bouncing to the beat, the editing keeps the scene focused and vibrant without becoming overwhelming. It's a delicate balance between visual excitement and narrative clarity, and the film handles it beautifully. The pacing of the story allows for rapid shifts between the film's multiple plot lines. There's Blue's family journey, the tension with Jewel's father, the children's jungle adventures, Nigel's revenge plan, and Linda and Tulio's rainforest rescue mission. The editing moves between these threads with precision, making sure each story feels alive and none of them fall behind. The transitions are often clever, using shared sounds, matching visual cues, or musical motifs to jump smoothly from one group of characters to another. For example, the sound of a drumbeat in the jungle can lead directly into a scene in the city, creating a sense of connection, even when the locations are miles apart. These small editing tricks keep the film feeling cohesive and interconnected, as if all the characters are part of the same giant rhythm. The comedic timing is one of the film's sharpest editing successes. Many of Blue's funniest moments rely on rapid cuts, perfectly timed reaction shots, and well-placed visual punchlines. The editing knows exactly when to hold a shot for an extra beat to let a joke land, and when to snap quickly to a new frame to keep the humor fast and surprising. Blue's awkward jungle mishaps, Nigel's theatrical outbursts, and Gabi's over-the-top romantic declarations all benefit from this playful editing style that knows how to balance the pace of the jokes with the pace of the story. The editor seems to have a precise sense of rhythm, almost like they're cutting the film to music even in non-musical scenes, keeping the whole film dancing along from one moment to the next. The action sequences are handled with a similar blend of speed and clarity. When Blue is fleeing through the jungle, when the macaws are racing, or when the final confrontation with the loggers unfolds, the editing picks up the pace but never loses the audience in a blur of motion. The cuts are rapid, but the geography of the scene always makes sense. The editor keeps the stakes clear by focusing on key characters and making sure each beat of the action is visible and emotionally connected. Even when the screen is filled with frantic movement, the editing keeps the chaos controlled. One of the film's most satisfying pacing elements is the way it knows when to breathe. The story never drags, but it's not afraid to pause in the right places. When Blue has moments of self-doubt, when Jewel reconnects with her family, or when the children discover something new, the editing allows the scene to stretch just a little longer. These emotional beats are not rushed through. The film gives the audience enough space to feel the characters' uncertainty, joy, or vulnerability before diving back into the next big, colorful set piece. These pauses are critical in a film with such a fast overall tempo. They make the emotional moments hit harder because they stand out against the lively backdrop. The pacing also cleverly matches the characters' emotional journeys. When Blue is overwhelmed, the editing speeds up, hopping quickly between his frantic attempts to adapt. When he begins to find his confidence, the cuts slow slightly, the framing opens up, and the scenes feel less rushed, as if the film itself is letting Blue take a breath. This subtle shift is a brilliant way to visually and emotionally track Blue's growth without spelling it out. The rhythm of the film is carefully built to mirror a musical composition. Lively verses, soaring choruses, quiet bridges, and playful solos, all stitched together with a flow that keeps the audience fully engaged. Even the film's quieter scenes carry an undercurrent of rhythm. Like the story is always dancing forward, always leading the viewer to the next moment with curiosity and joy. The editing uses this musicality not just in song sequences, but throughout the entire narrative, crafting a tempo that carries both humor and heart with the same bounce and energy. There are no moments in the film where the pacing noticeably lags. The story is structured to keep switching locations, shifting character groups, introducing new musical numbers, or layering in new challenges before any one thread has a chance to become stale. This pacing keeps the story feeling fresh and alive, preventing any dips in engagement. Even when the film is moving fast, the editing always makes sure the emotional connections stay intact. The transitions are not just functional. They carry feeling, humor, and rhythm from one beat to the next. The editing and pacing of Rio 2 are the pulse of the film. They shape the experience with an effortless, musical rhythm that feels perfectly in tune with the vibrant, unpredictable world of the story. Rio 2 carries an impressive collection of themes that ripple through every part of its story, sometimes loud and center stage, sometimes tucked gently beneath the humor and music, waiting for the audience to discover them. The beauty of the film's messaging is that it never feels like it's trying to preach. It dances, it sings, it tells jokes, but under the surface, it's consistently offering thoughtful reflections on identity, home, culture, family dynamics, community, courage, environmental stewardship, self-acceptance, and what it really means to grow. The primary theme that wraps itself around the entire film is the deep exploration of belonging. This is not just a story about a family of blue macaws going on a jungle vacation. It's about Blue's search for where he fits. He has always seen himself as a misfit, a bird raised by humans who loves pancakes, relies on GPS, and feels safe when the world is organized. Now suddenly, he's dropped into the wild, where his habits make him an outsider, where traditions seem set in stone, and where the birds around him carry an entirely different set of expectations. The film gently but persistently pushes Blue to question. Does fitting in mean changing who you are? Or does true belonging happen when you bring your own unique self into a new space and still find acceptance? Blue's clumsy attempts to adapt aren't just for laughs. They highlight the very real tension many people feel when navigating between different cultural identities, family traditions, or social groups. Blue isn't asked to abandon his past or erase his quirks. Instead, the story carefully shows that the jungle doesn't need Blue to become someone else. It needs him to fully step into who he already is. The theme of family expectations sits heavily alongside this. Eduardo, Jewel's father, is the proud leader of the macaw tribe, fiercely protective of his home and deeply committed to tradition. His immediate disappointment in Blue is played for comedy, but it taps into something universally relatable, the pressure to live up to a parent's standards. Eduardo's vision of a worthy macaw doesn't include Blue's careful, city-trained ways, and Blue spends much of the film believing he has to change to win Eduardo's approval. The story cleverly flips this expectation by showing that it's not Blue who has to prove his worth by discarding who he is. Instead, Eduardo slowly learns to see value in Blue's differences. This theme speaks to the tension that can exist between generations, when traditions feel like rigid rules, and when the new ways seem like threats. The film's answer is clear. It's not about choosing one or the other. Growth happens when tradition and modernity learn to dance together. There's a powerful environmental theme beating through the core of the film, but it's never pushed aggressively. The story introduces the threat of deforestation quietly at first, through Linda and Tulio's research, but as the plot unfolds, the real cost of the loggers' greed comes into focus. This is not an abstract story about endangered species. It's about families losing their homes, ecosystems unraveling, and the fight to preserve not just the beauty of nature, but the very survival of the creatures who live there. The film carefully frames this fight as a community effort. It's not a problem that can be solved by a single hero. Everyone, from the humans to the birds to the tiniest frog, has to work together to protect what matters. The environmental message is not presented as doom and gloom. Instead, it's filled with hope, with the idea that small, determined voices can band together and make a difference. The film shows the rainforest as a living, breathing character in its own right, a place filled with music, color, life, and intricate balance. By making the jungle so beautiful and joyful, the film naturally makes the audience care about its protection without needing to slow down the story to deliver a lecture. Another subtle but meaningful theme is the film's celebration of embracing difference. Blue's city habits, which seem awkward and out of place in the jungle, turn out to be exactly what's needed to save the day. His portable fanny pack, his GPS reliance, his clever gadgets. These become assets, not weaknesses. The film gently nudges the audience to consider that sometimes, the things that make you different are exactly the things that make you valuable. Whether it's cultural background, personality, skills, or ways of thinking, diversity is not something to fix or hide. It's something to celebrate. This message echoes across the film's many character groups. The jungle birds are not a single-minded tribe. They have their own quirks, personalities, and contradictions. The humans, though secondary characters, show that not all people are indifferent to nature. Even characters like Gabi, the tiny poison frog with a massive crush on Nigel, are treated with empathy despite their comedic villainy. Gabi's entire arc playfully challenges the idea that you have to fit a specific mold to find belonging. The theme of stepping outside your comfort zone carries the entire story forward. Blue begins the film as a bird who loves his routines, his backpack, his maps, and his pancake breakfasts. The jungle disrupts everything he knows. His world becomes unpredictable, fast-moving, and filled with creatures who live by instinct rather than carefully planned schedules. Every obstacle he faces forces him to either retreat or adapt. But the film doesn't demand that Blue immediately become brave, adventurous, or naturally skilled. It lets him stumble, hesitate, and make mistakes. The story suggests that courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about trying anyway. Blue doesn't grow by becoming like everyone else. He grows by finding his own way to face the jungle on his terms. The musical competition between bird tribes is another playful way the film weaves in its themes. What begins as a rivalry becomes a celebration of shared talent and community. The competition isn't about proving superiority. It becomes a colorful demonstration of cultural expression and the joy of performance. The film lightly touches on the idea that competition can bring out the best in us, but it doesn't need to divide us. In the end, the music and dance unite the birds more than they separate them. Nigel's villainous subplot provides a humorous, but pointed exploration of holding on to grudges. His obsession with revenge is treated as a cautionary tale about what happens when someone can't move on. Nigel is so stuck in his desire to settle old scores that he misses the entire adventure unfolding around him. His blind focus becomes a joke, but it also speaks to the emptiness of clinging to resentment while life rushes past. Gabi's misguided loyalty to Nigel adds another layer. She's consumed by unrequited love and a fantasy that doesn't match reality. The film uses these characters to quietly suggest that sometimes, people, or birds, or frogs, build their entire identity around something that doesn't actually serve them. The film also taps into the importance of listening. Truly listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Blue and Jewel start the film with conflicting visions of what's best for their family. Blue wants to return to what's familiar. Jewel wants to rediscover her roots. Their ability to listen, compromise, and understand each other is what ultimately keeps their family strong. The film doesn't rush this growth. It lets them disagree, make mistakes, and eventually realize that both perspectives matter. Rio 2 carries an impressive collection of themes that ripple through every part of its story. Sometimes loud and center stage, sometimes tucked gently beneath the humor and music, waiting for the audience to discover them. The beauty of the film's messaging is that it never feels like it's trying to preach. It dances, it sings, it tells jokes, but under the surface, it's consistently offering thoughtful reflections on identity, home culture, family dynamics, community, courage, environmental stewardship, self-acceptance, and what it really means to grow. The primary theme that wraps itself around the entire film is the deep exploration of belonging. This is not just a story about a family of blue macaws going on a jungle vacation. It's about Blue's search for where he fits. He has always seen himself as a misfit, a bird raised by humans who loves pancakes, relies on GPS, and feels safe when the world is organized. Now suddenly he's dropped into the wild, where his habits make him an outsider, where traditions seem set in stone, and where the birds around him carry an entirely different set of expectations. The film gently but persistently pushes Blue to question. Does fitting in mean changing who you are? Or does true belonging happen when you bring your own unique self into a new space and still find acceptance? Blue's clumsy attempts to adapt aren't just for laughs. They highlight the very real tension many people feel when navigating between different cultural identities, family traditions, or social groups. Blue isn't asked to abandon his past or erase his quirks. Instead, the story carefully shows that the jungle doesn't need Blue to become someone else. It needs him to fully step into who he already is. The theme of family expectations sits heavily alongside this. Eduardo, Jewel's father, is the proud leader of the macaw tribe, fiercely protective of his home and deeply committed to tradition. His immediate disappointment in Blue is played for comedy, but it taps into something universally relatable: the pressure to live up to a parent's standards. Eduardo's vision of a worthy macaw doesn't include Blue's careful, city-trained ways, and Blue spends much of the film believing he has to change to win Eduardo's approval. The story cleverly flips this expectation by showing that it's not Blue who has to prove his worth by discarding who he is. Instead, Eduardo slowly learns to see value in Blue's differences. This theme speaks to the tension that can exist between generations, when traditions feel like rigid rules, and when the new ways seem like threats. The film's answer is clear. It's not about choosing one or the other. Growth happens when tradition and modernity learn to dance together. There's a powerful environmental theme beating through the core of the film, but it's never pushed aggressively. The story introduces the threat of deforestation quietly at first, through Linda and Tulio's research, but as the plot unfolds, the real cost of the loggers' greed comes into focus. This is not an abstract story about endangered species. It's about families losing their homes, ecosystems unraveling, and the fight to preserve not just the beauty of nature, but the very survival of the creatures who live there. The film carefully frames this fight as a community effort. It's not a problem that can be solved by a single hero. Everyone, from the humans to the birds to the tiniest frog, has to work together to protect what matters. The environmental message is not presented as doom and gloom. Instead, it's filled with hope, with the idea that small, determined voices can band together and make a difference. The film shows the rainforest as a living, breathing character in its own right. A place filled with music, color, life, and intricate balance. By making the jungle so beautiful and joyful, the film naturally makes the audience care about its protection without needing to slow down the story to deliver a lecture. Another subtle but meaningful theme is the film's celebration of embracing difference. Blue's city habits, which seem awkward and out of place in the jungle, turn out to be exactly what's needed to save the day. His portable fanny pack, his GPS reliance, his clever gadgets, these become assets, not weaknesses. The film gently nudges the audience to consider that sometimes, the things that make you different are exactly the things that make you valuable. Whether it's cultural background, personality, skills, or ways of thinking, diversity is not something to fix or hide. It's something to celebrate. This message echoes across the film's many character groups. The jungle birds are not a single-minded tribe. They have their own quirks, personalities, and contradictions. The humans, though secondary characters, show that not all people are indifferent to nature. Even characters like Gabi, the tiny poison frog with a massive crush on Nigel, are treated with empathy despite their comedic villainy. Gabi's entire arc playfully challenges the idea that you have to fit a specific mold to find belonging. The theme of stepping outside your comfort zone carries the entire story forward. Blue begins the film as a bird who loves his routines, his backpack, his maps, and his pancake breakfasts. The jungle disrupts everything he knows. His world becomes unpredictable, fast-moving, and filled with creatures who live by instinct rather than carefully planned schedules. Every obstacle he faces forces him to either retreat or adapt. But the film doesn't demand that Blue immediately become brave, adventurous, or naturally skilled. It lets him stumble, hesitate, and make mistakes. The story suggests that courage isn't about never being afraid, it's about trying anyway. Blue doesn't grow by becoming like everyone else. He grows by finding his own way to face the jungle on his terms. The musical competition between bird tribes is another playful way the film weaves in its themes. What begins as a rivalry becomes a celebration of shared talent and community. The competition isn't about proving superiority. It becomes a colorful demonstration of cultural expression and the joy of performance. The film lightly touches on the idea that competition can bring out the best in us, but it doesn't need to divide us. In the end, the music and dance unite the birds more than they separate them. Nigel's villainous subplot provides a humorous but pointed exploration of holding on to grudges. His obsession with revenge is treated as a cautionary tale about what happens when someone can't move on. Nigel is so stuck in his desire to settle old scores that he misses the entire adventure unfolding around him. His blind focus becomes a joke, but it also speaks to the emptiness of clinging to resentment while life rushes past. Gabi's misguided loyalty to Nigel adds another layer. She's consumed by unrequited love and a fantasy that doesn't match reality. The film uses these characters to quietly suggest that sometimes, people, or birds, or frogs, build their entire identity around something that doesn't actually serve them. The film also taps into the importance of listening, truly listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Blue and Jewel start the film with conflicting visions of what's best for their family. Blue wants to return to what's familiar. Jewel wants to rediscover her roots. Their ability to listen, compromise, and understand each other is what ultimately keeps their family strong. The film doesn't rush this growth. It lets them disagree, make mistakes, and eventually realize that both perspectives matter. The soundtrack and score of Rio 2 are not just background music. They are the life force of the entire film, the constant pulse that carries the audience through every twist, every laugh, every leap, and every heartwarming moment. From the very first second, the music announces itself with boldness, as if it's saying this is not just a movie, it's a celebration. It's not simply there to decorate the story. It becomes part of the story's DNA, shaping the tone, amplifying the emotions, and adding a unique musical personality to each character, location, and moment. The musical world of Rio 2 builds directly on the rhythms of its setting. The soundtrack blends Brazilian musical traditions with contemporary pop influences in a way that feels completely organic to the story. There's a rich layer of samba, bossa nova, Afro-Brazilian beats, and joyful street music baked into the score, but it's not stuck in one style. The film constantly surprises the audience by shifting between musical genres without losing its Brazilian soul. The music seems to follow the characters, breathing with them, moving with them, and at times, almost speaking for them. The songs explode with life in the grand musical numbers. These aren't simply song breaks. They are full-blown visual and sonic celebrations where the music takes command of the scene. The carnival sequences at the start set the musical tone of the film with pounding drums, layered percussion, fast rhythms, and a chorus of joyful voices that wrap the viewer in the energy of the city. The songs here are like street parades. They surround you, they invite you in, they dare you to dance. The music sweeps you up and immediately connects you to Blue's colorful world. The transition from the urban soundscape of Rio to the earthy, natural rhythms of the Amazon is handled with incredible musical sensitivity. The music shifts naturally, introducing more wooden drums, flutes, jungle animal sounds, and folk elements that feel like they were born in the rainforest. This shift doesn't just change the mood. It deepens the story's connection to place. The Amazon's music is slower in tempo but still filled with energy, blending sounds of nature with tribal percussion in a way that makes the jungle feel ancient, alive, and sacred. The film's score is packed with recurring musical motifs that act like secret emotional guides. Blue has his own musical signature, a bouncy, slightly hesitant rhythm that follows him whenever he's unsure or out of his depth. As the film progresses and Blue starts to find his courage, the same motif returns with fuller instrumentation, more confident beats and stronger melodies, subtly showing that he's growing and changing. This musical evolution is not something the characters say out loud. It's something the audience feels without even realizing. The Amazon tribe's theme is another standout. It's introduced with soaring flutes and layered drums when the tribe is first revealed, and it continues to return in moments of unity, celebration, and connection to nature. The music surrounding the tribe is grand and majestic, yet it always carries a playful undercurrent, reminding the audience that this is not a grim tale of survival. It's a vibrant story of family, community, and belonging. Nigel's villainous musical numbers are some of the film's most creative and hilarious musical moments. His song doesn't just tell us he's the villain. It completely changes the musical atmosphere, pulling the film into a cabaret-style performance filled with theatrical flair, sharp tempo changes, and delightfully over-the-top dramatics. The score wraps itself around Nigel's antics, shifting into minor keys, introducing sneaky string sections, and spinning around his exaggerated delivery. His musical style is so distinct that when his theme returns in later scenes, the audience is immediately dropped back into his bizarre world of mischief and revenge. Gabi, the tiny poison dart frog, gets her own set of musical highlights that are just as memorable. Her songs are drenched in melodrama, often accompanied by soft, delicate melodies that seem to mock her tiny size but explode into grand, heartfelt declarations that match her enormous emotions. The music that follows Gabi is always playful, sometimes syrupy sweet, sometimes leaning into the theatrical romance she imagines between herself and Nigel. The soundtrack uses these musical choices to perfectly reflect her over-the-top personality, making her one of the most entertaining side characters in the film. One of the film's most impressive musical techniques is how seamlessly it integrates song, score, sound effects, and natural environmental sounds into a unified soundscape. The line between where a musical number ends and where the score begins is often beautifully blurred. For example, during a jungle soccer game, the rhythm of the game, the ball hitting leaves, the thud of feet on logs, the slap of wings, blends with the percussion in the score, creating a musical sequence that feels both natural and meticulously crafted. These layers of sound keep the musical world feeling alive and immersive, as if the entire jungle is singing along. Silence is used sparingly but powerfully. The film is so filled with music that when the soundtrack suddenly drops away, the effect is immediate. In moments where Blue feels isolated or when the stakes suddenly become serious, the absence of music draws the audience's attention. The quiet moments are never stretched too long, but when they appear, they hit with surprising weight. The film knows exactly when to step back from its wall of sound to let a simple glance, a nervous breath, or the sound of wind through the trees carry the emotional load. The action sequences are another playground for the soundtrack. The pace of the music accelerates with the speed of the scene, matching every frantic movement with percussion that drives the urgency forward. When the characters are in danger, the music doesn't fall into the usual suspense cliches. Instead, it maintains a playful but determined rhythm, reminding the audience that even when things get tense, this is still a story filled with joy and adventure. The music drives the tension without drowning the scene in darkness. The film's musical choices consistently serve to strengthen the emotional connections between characters. When Blue and Jewel share tender moments, The music softens into gentle harmonies, often using subtle echoes of their earlier city themes now reimagined in the context of the jungle. When the macaw family finally flies together in harmony, the music swells into one of the most uplifting moments of the film, using sweeping orchestration to make the audience feel the full emotional release of Blue's journey. The final musical sequence is a grand celebration that fuses everything the soundtrack has introduced throughout the story. The city's rhythms return, the jungle's percussion pulses beneath them, character themes weave in and out, and the result is a layered, satisfying payoff where every musical thread is pulled together. The film's editing, choreography, and sound design all lock perfectly into place with the soundtrack, creating a finale that feels like a true musical and emotional crescendo. The soundtrack and score of Rio 2 are not just there to accompany the visuals. They are the lifeblood of the film's emotional landscape. They give voice to the characters' fears, joys, victories, and embarrassments. In Rio 2, the set design and locations are more than just backdrops. They are the soul of the film, bursting with life, texture, and a sense of adventure that pulls the audience straight into the heart of Brazil and deep into the untamed beauty of the Amazon rainforest. Every location is crafted with so much visual richness and storytelling energy that the settings become active characters, shaping the mood, pushing the story forward, and wrapping each scene in layers of color, sound, and detail that make the world feel tangible, vast, and wonderfully alive. The film starts by grounding the audience in the vibrant city of Rio de Janeiro, and the design of this urban landscape is packed with personality. The streets are alive with music, food, festivals, and the constant rhythm of human and animal life moving together. The homes, markets, and carnival grounds are designed with bright colors, detailed textures, and playful props that instantly build the world's energy and culture. Blue's home is filled with charming little objects that reveal his careful, city-trained personality. Pancake griddles, fanny packs, books, and gadgets, all meticulously placed to show his need for order and comfort. The city is not presented as a generic urban center. It's warm, specific, and lovingly detailed, with every street, storefront, and rooftop humming with the buzz of daily life. The city's design creates a sharp but beautiful contrast when the story shifts to the wild. When the characters travel into the Amazon, the set design expands into a sprawling playground of lush, layered jungles, rushing rivers, towering trees, and secret hideaways. The jungle locations are not just pretty, they are overflowing with sensory detail. Every tree seems to have its own story, with twisted vines, mossy trunks, and high canopies that stretch beyond sight. The props scattered through the jungle, fallen logs, blooming flowers, shimmering pools, aren't just set dressing. They are constantly used by the characters, whether for swinging, climbing, hiding, or playing. The jungle feels fully alive, with creatures flitting in the background, leaves rustling with invisible movement, and natural sounds weaving through the environment. The variety of jungle locations keeps the journey fresh. There are quiet, misty riverbanks where the family can pause, deep jungle mazes with twisting paths, dramatic cliffs that offer breathtaking aerial views, and open clearings that transform into colorful stages for musical performances. The river itself is a recurring location that changes personality with every scene, sometimes peaceful and sparkling, other times fast-moving and filled with the energy of a high-speed flight chase. The Amazon macaw tribe's hidden home is a standout piece of set design. Nestled deep within the jungle, this sanctuary is a complex structure of interconnected trees, carefully built nests, natural platforms, and communal spaces. The design balances natural jungle elements with a sense of organized, community-driven architecture. It's not just a random tangle of branches. It's a carefully built village where every perch, pathway, and gathering space feels like it belongs. The bright colors of the macaws are reflected in the surrounding flowers and foliage, creating a sense of harmony between the birds and their environment. The macaw home feels cozy, practical, and steeped in tradition, making it a visually and emotionally important location that reflects Jules' roots and Eduardo's pride. The film also features a brilliantly designed performance arena, where the jungle tribes engage in a lively musical competition. This space is not a manufactured stage. It's a natural amphitheater carved out by the jungle itself. The design uses vines, stones, and tree trunks to create seating, pathways, and performance zones, making it feel like the jungle has simply embraced the festivities. The set design here is playful, colorful, and filled with energy, perfectly matching the music and choreography that take place within it. One of the most effective location contrasts comes with the introduction of the loggers' camp. Unlike the rich, organic layers of the jungle, the camp is all straight lines, metal, mud, and heavy machinery. The bulldozers, saws, and logging trucks are designed with harsh edges and muted colors, creating a visual threat that stands out in the jungle's vibrant world. The logger camp feels invasive and temporary, with tire tracks cutting through soft earth and piles of felled trees casting long, mournful shadows. The design of this space communicates its danger without needing words. It's a visual symbol of destruction, standing in stark opposition to the lively, harmonious jungle villages. Blue's portable props, like his backpack filled with survival gadgets and his beloved GPS, add another layer to the set design's storytelling. These personal objects are more than funny accessories. They tell the story of who Blue is and how he moves through the world. His items feel out of place in the jungle, which makes them stand out even more as visual cues of his discomfort and his determination to hold on to the familiar. Over time, as Blue adapts, the way he interacts with these props changes. His reliance on them softens, and they become tools that bridge his city life and his jungle adventure. Even the temporary settings, like the jungle soccer field, are built with incredible attention to how the characters will use the space. The soccer field is not a formal pitch. It's a wild, uneven clearing, filled with natural obstacles like rocks, tree roots, and low-hanging vines that the players creatively use to their advantage. The design turns the jungle into part of the game, making the space feel alive, unpredictable, and uniquely suited to the bird's talents. The interiors of the jungle nests, meeting spots, and communal spaces are all designed with a focus on natural materials. The nests are woven from twigs, padded with soft jungle moss, and perched on carefully selected branches. Gathering spaces are built into the natural architecture of the trees, with seating areas that blend seamlessly into the environment. There's a strong sense that nothing in the jungle was built with the intention of dominating nature. Instead, the birds have adapted to the jungle, shaping their homes in ways that respect and harmonize with the landscape around them. Set design also plays a big role in establishing the film's shifting moods. Bright, sun-soaked clearings create a feeling of openness and play, while the darker, denser parts of the jungle add tension and mystery. When the characters face danger, the lighting changes, shadows deepen, and the surroundings grow more claustrophobic, wrapping the characters in visual cues that heighten suspense. When joy and celebration return, the jungle opens up again, bursting with flowers, open skies, and playful spaces that invite movement and music. The film's closing scenes bring the visual journey full circle, blending the structured, familiar spaces of the city with the wild, natural beauty of the jungle. The final locations showcase how the characters now feel at home in both worlds, and the set design subtly shifts to reflect that balance. The boundaries between city life and jungle life soften, showing that Blue's family has created their own space where both parts of their identity coexist. Throughout Rio 2, the locations aren't just places where events happen. They shape the story, challenge the characters, and create emotional landmarks that stay with the audience. The dialogue and script in Rio 2 are a whirlwind of humor, heart, rhythm, and sharp timing, woven together in a way that keeps the energy bouncing from scene to scene. The film's script leans into its playful tone without ever abandoning emotional depth, allowing characters to exchange snappy comebacks, heartfelt confessions, and spirited banter with equal finesse. The conversations feel natural but never flat. They carry that extra sparkle of animation charm where every line seems carefully tuned for both character and comedy. Blue's dialogue is a standout right from the beginning. His lines are packed with nervous energy, awkward phrasing, and perfectly timed quips that highlight his city bird anxieties. His way of speaking is peppered with practical advice, overthought instructions, and the kind of self-reassuring mumbling that instantly makes him relatable. Blue's tendency to narrate his own actions, question his surroundings out loud, and over-explain everything to himself isn't just a running gag. It's a brilliant window into his mind. The script allows his cautious, organized nature to come through in every sentence, whether he's worrying about GPS signals, trying to convince himself that he belongs in the jungle, or nervously correcting others about bird facts. His dialogue feels effortlessly funny because it's so grounded in who he is. Jules' lines balance Blue's neurotic rambling with a straightforward, instinct-driven voice. Her words are purposeful, direct, and filled with gentle impatience when Blue's overthinking gets in the way. The script captures her confidence and connection to nature, often through short, decisive phrases that cut right to the point. Her dialogue is not just a string of instructions. It's laced with subtle warmth, protective instincts, and occasional exasperation that make her a perfect counterbalance to Blue's chatter. Their back-and-forth exchanges form the core rhythm of the film's humor and heart, with Jules' grounded observations often colliding with Blue's frantic attempts to control the uncontrollable. Nigel's dialogue is a theatrical masterpiece in itself. His lines are overflowing with grandiose flair, dripping with melodrama, and sharpened with biting sarcasm. The script gives him room to fully embrace his role as a flamboyant villain who loves the sound of his own voice. Nigel doesn't just plot revenge. He monologues about it, weaving poetic threats, tragic self-pity, and over-the-top villainy into every syllable. His dramatic style turns every scene into a mini-stage production, and the humor hits because he is completely, unapologetically extra. Even when the story doesn't need him to say much, the script finds ways to keep Nigel's presence crackling with intensity. His insults are creative, his taunts are rhythmically delivered, and his self-narration is filled with theatrical pauses and exaggerated metaphors that make his dialogue sing with personality. Gabi, the tiny poison dart frog, brings her own spectacular flavor to the script. Her lines are a wild combination of obsessive love, bubbly cheerfulness, and sudden outbursts of poisonous rage. The brilliance of Gabi's dialogue lies in how it plays with emotional extremes. She can go from dreamy sighs about Nigel to manic declarations of destruction in a single breath. The script doesn't try to restrain her. Her words tumble out fast, layered with dramatic pauses and rushed confessions that perfectly match her high-energy delivery. Her lines are memorable because they sound like no one else in the film. The comedy comes from her unpredictable rhythm, her tendency to say the quiet part out loud, and her overblown devotion to a villain who barely notices her. The supporting characters also get their share of sharp lines. Eduardo's dialogue captures the weight of tradition and the skepticism of a father who doesn't quite know what to do with his son-in-law. His words are often laced with humor that pokes at Blue's city ways, but beneath the teasing is a soft edge of pride that slowly reveals itself as the story unfolds. The script gives Eduardo's character room to transition from stern warnings to warm acceptance, and his lines shift accordingly, becoming more open and subtly humorous as his relationship with Blue evolves. The dialogue between the young macaw kids is playful, fast, and filled with sibling squabbles that feel genuinely fun. The script lets them bounce between teasing their dad, marveling at the jungle, and competing with each other, keeping their voices fresh and lively. Their lines often feel spontaneous, adding to the film's family dynamic without needing to slow the story down for forced sentimental moments. One of the script's most entertaining strengths is its use of running gags and callbacks. Blue's obsession with his GPS, his awkward reliance on his fanny pack, and his constant preparation for emergencies are not just throwaway jokes. They return throughout the story in new and surprising ways. The script cleverly loops these details back into key moments, making the humor feel earned and connected rather than random. The musical sequences themselves are bursting with lyrical wit. The lyrics are tightly written, filled with internal rhymes, clever wordplay, and fast-paced rhythms that challenge the characters to keep up with the beat. The songs double as character-driven dialogue, allowing emotions, rivalries, and declarations of love or revenge to unfold in verse without ever losing the story's momentum. Nigel's villainous rap, in particular, is a standout moment where the script flexes its lyrical muscle, turning his revenge plot into a musical explosion of wordplay and rhythm that's impossible to forget. Beyond the humor, the script carves out space for real emotional weight. When Blue and Jewel clash over their vision for their family's future, their dialogue feels honest and rooted in their characters' histories. The script doesn't force long-winded speeches. It trusts simple, well-timed lines to carry the emotional load. Jewel's reminders to Blue about the importance of connection, family, and living in the moment are quietly powerful, and Blue's struggle to express his own fears comes through in short, anxious bursts that make his vulnerability feel genuine. The jungle community's musical battle is another space where the dialogue shines. The playful insults, the competitive banter, and the sly taunts thrown between rival tribes are fast, sharp, and rhythmically satisfying, adding layers of humor and excitement to the already energetic scene. The pacing of these exchanges is key. The script keeps the back and forth moving at a snappy pace that mirrors the physical competition, creating a sense of verbal choreography that's as fun to listen to as it is to watch. The dialogue throughout Rio 2 consistently serves multiple purposes at once. It entertains, it reveals character, it advances the story, and it brings out emotional beats without losing the film's playful tone. Even minor characters are given lines that carry unique rhythms and memorable quirks, making the entire world feel full of distinctive voices rather than generic background chatter. The script isn't afraid to be silly, and that's part of its charm. It embraces puns, exaggerated exclamations, and comedic misunderstandings, but it also knows when to pull back and let a quiet moment land with sincerity. The balance between humor and heart is skillfully maintained, creating a script that sparkles with personality from the first line to the last. Rio 2 carries more than just bright feathers and catchy songs. It subtly weaves in layers of social and cultural commentary that ripple beneath its playful surface. While the film never shifts into heavy-handed messaging, it cleverly tucks real-world issues into its story, using the vibrant world of the Amazon and the journey of Blue's family to touch on themes that resonate far beyond the jungle. The most immediate and persistent commentary revolves around environmental preservation. The threat of deforestation looms large throughout the film, not as a dry lesson, but as a real, visible force that's tearing through the jungle's beauty and disrupting entire ecosystems. The human loggers represent industrial expansion and the careless destruction of natural habitats, a conflict that mirrors the very real struggles faced by rainforests around the world. The film does not slow down to lecture about climate change or conservation. It simply lets the visuals, the character reactions, and the unfolding danger speak for themselves. The jungle is teeming with life, community, and intricate balance, and the arrival of bulldozers feels like an unmistakable violation. The damage caused by the loggers is not just physical. It threatens culture, family, and identity, showing that the fight to protect the jungle is not just about trees, but about preserving a way of life. The story also explores the idea of cultural identity, particularly through the lens of family heritage and connection to one's roots. Blue's journey from the structured, city-dwelling comfort of Rio to the free-spirited, ancestral home in the jungle highlights the tension between modernity and tradition. Blue embodies a more urban, technology-driven mindset, complete with GPS devices and a reliance on human-like conveniences, while Jewel and Eduardo embrace a lifestyle deeply tied to nature, community, and instinct. The film doesn't vilify either side. Instead, it invites the audience to consider what it means to belong and how people, or birds, can sometimes drift from their origins without realizing what they've left behind. The gentle push and pull between Blue's cautious city ways and the jungle's untamed freedom speaks to a broader cultural conversation about the importance of staying connected to one's heritage while navigating the fast-paced world of modernization. The generational divide is another subtle but persistent commentary running through the film. Eduardo represents the old ways, deeply rooted in tradition, skeptical of outsiders, and fiercely protective of his family and his tribe. Blue stands in for a newer generation, one that sees the world through the lens of technology, global travel, and a broader, more interconnected experience. Their initial clashes are comedic, but they carry the weight of real-world generational misunderstandings. Eduardo's insistence on jungle life being the only proper way speaks to cultural preservation, while Blue's struggle to prove himself shows the challenges of integrating different perspectives without losing respect for tradition. The story allows this conflict to unfold naturally, without forcing easy resolutions, suggesting that understanding between generations is a slow dance rather than a quick handshake. There's also a playful nod to tourism and globalization tucked into the film's early scenes. Blue's dependence on maps, his travel guides, his reliance on human-designed tools, all subtly poke fun at the tourist mentality of trying to control every step of an adventure. The contrast between Blue's meticulously planned approach and the free-flowing, instinctive navigation of the jungle birds offers a light commentary on how modern travelers often struggle to fully immerse themselves in new cultures. Blue's journey is not just across geography, it's a journey toward letting go of control and learning to trust experience over instructions. The film touches lightly on themes of gender roles, particularly through Jewel's character, who defies the typical expectations of a protective, home-focused mother. Jewel is bold, adventurous, and fiercely independent, and she pushes Blue to expand his comfort zone rather than settling into a more domestic role. Blue's initial nervousness about jungle life, raising kids in the wild, and stepping outside his safe routines highlights a subtle inversion of traditional gender dynamics. Jewel isn't waiting to be protected. She's the one leading the charge, challenging Blue to step up and embrace the untamed world. Nigel's subplot offers a satirical twist on the idea of celebrity and the hunger for revenge over lost fame. His dramatic fall from grace, his obsession with reclaiming the spotlight, and his over-the-top performances lampoon the sometimes ridiculous lengths to which people, or birds, will go to be noticed again. Gabi's extreme devotion to Nigel adds another layer, playfully commenting on the blind loyalty and parasocial attachments that often swirl around celebrities, even when they don't deserve the adoration. This subplot is wrapped in humor and musical spectacle, but it lightly taps into real cultural conversations about fame, relevance, and the often desperate attempts to claw back public attention. The community-focused Jungle Tribe also reflects broader social ideas about cooperation, collective living, and respect for nature's cycles. Unlike the human loggers who push forward with destructive individualism, the jungle birds thrive in communal spaces where resources are shared, and survival depends on mutual support. The soccer game, the group musical performances, and the shared responsibilities within the tribe quietly reinforce the message that collaboration, not competition, is what sustains their world. The film positions the jungle as a space where harmony is possible, but it requires understanding, flexibility, and a deep respect for the balance of life. The musical battles and rhythm competitions that weave through the story are not just entertainment. They reflect Brazil's rich cultural traditions, particularly the deep connection between music, identity, and community. The film doesn't borrow music in a superficial way. It celebrates it as a language that unites, energizes, and expresses the soul of the people and birds who live in this world. The joyful chaos of the musical scenes, the spontaneous rhythm games, and the blending of different musical styles within the film's soundtrack all nod to Brazil's cultural landscape, where music is not a luxury, it's a way of life. Rio 2 never stops to lecture about these themes, which is part of its strength. It trusts the audience to feel the weight of the environmental threat without spelling it out in monologues. It allows the cultural differences, the family tensions, and the subtle critiques of modern life to unfold within the humor, the music, and the adventure. The social and cultural commentary is seamlessly baked into the story's feathers and branches, offering layers of meaning that can flutter lightly for younger viewers, but land with surprising depth for those who take the time to look a little closer. The film celebrates culture, challenges assumptions, and defends nature, all while dancing, flying, and laughing its way through the jungle. Rio 2 is built to sweep its audience into a whirlwind of color, music, laughter, and heartfelt moments that invite emotional connection from the very first frame. It knows exactly how to play with moods and emotions, balancing wild comedy with moments of genuine tenderness. And the result is a film that keeps viewers actively engaged, whether they're dancing along with the rhythm, chuckling at Blue's awkward jungle stumbles, or feeling the tug of family bonds that thread through the story. The film hooks its audience immediately with its festive, high-energy opening that invites you to step into the buzzing heart of Rio de Janeiro. The lively carnival scenes are impossible to resist, pulling viewers into the vibrant chaos of feathers, beats, and celebration. It's not just spectacle. It's an invitation to feel the pulse of the world these characters call home. The audience is instantly wrapped in the rhythm, and that sense of inclusion continues as the film flies from the city streets to the untamed depths of the Amazon. Every set piece is designed to be an immersive playground, making the audience feel like they are flying right alongside Blue and his family, swooping through trees, gliding over rivers, and discovering hidden jungle corners packed with life and surprise. Comedy is one of the film's sharpest tools for audience engagement. Blue's city bird quirks provide a steady stream of laughter, especially when his obsessive love for gadgets and his desperate attempts to stick to a plan collide with the unpredictable jungle life. His awkwardness, his overthinking, and his anxious problem-solving are endlessly relatable. The humor lands because it grows out of his character rather than being forced into the scene for a cheap laugh. His fanny pack mishaps, GPS blunders, and over-preparation create a kind of running joke that the audience can easily latch onto. And as the story progresses, viewers start to anticipate and delight in the next moment where Blue's careful plans unravel. The film's humor never rests on just one character. Nigel's flamboyant villainy, Gabi's over-the-top love obsession, and the chaotic antics of the jungle tribe add layers of comedy that touch different comedic styles, from sharp verbal jabs to physical gags and pure musical absurdity. Nigel's performances are so extravagantly theatrical that it's impossible not to get swept up in his melodramatic energy. His scenes almost demand audience participation. You can feel viewers wanting to quote his lines, sing along to his villainous ballads, or simply marvel at his outrageous delivery. The musical numbers are designed to pull audiences into the story on a visceral level. These are not passive listening experiences. They are crafted to make you tap your feet, move your head, and feel the rhythm in your chest. The competition scenes, the jungle dance-offs, the soaring group harmonies, they all carry a pulse that is meant to be felt physically, drawing the viewer into the celebration. These moments are pure energy, moments where the audience can feel fully present in the world, carried along by the beat. The film also delivers emotional moments that resonate quietly but deeply. Blue's struggle to connect with Eduardo and find his place in the jungle taps into universal feelings of not being good enough or not fitting in. The audience can't help but root for Blue as he stumbles through cultural misunderstandings, tries to prove himself to a skeptical father-in-law, and wrestles with the fear of losing his family to a life he doesn't fully understand. These beats are not forced or heavy. They flow naturally from the story, allowing viewers to feel the sting of rejection, the awkwardness of self-doubt, and the warmth of eventual acceptance. The story of Blue and his family touches on themes that many can relate to: navigating change, embracing new environments, bridging generational gaps, and learning when to lead and when to let go. Jewel's moments with her long-lost family are filled with a soft, reflective tone that gently pulls at the heart. When she reconnects with Eduardo and steps back into the jungle life she thought she'd lost, the film gives the audience quiet moments to savor that emotional reunion. It's not a grand, sweeping revelation. It's a simple, beautifully human moment of rediscovery, and it invites viewers to think about their own connections to family, roots, and the places that shaped them. The danger posed by the loggers introduces suspense and excitement that keep viewers on the edge of their seats. The chase sequences, the tense standoffs, and the looming threat of the jungle's destruction all land with genuine weight. These moments are not just thrilling. They carry an emotional charge because by this point, the audience is fully invested in protecting the jungle alongside the characters. When the bulldozers crash through the trees, it's not just an environmental threat. It's a personal attack on the home the audience has come to love. The tension pulls the viewer deeper into the story, making the stakes feel urgent and immediate. Rio 2 invites repeat viewings not just because of its colorful spectacle, but because of the layered details that become more rewarding over time. The quick-witted dialogue, the small visual jokes tucked into the background, and the rhythmic choreography of the musical numbers all offer new things to catch with each watch. The humor is layered in such a way that younger audiences might initially laugh at the physical gags, while older viewers can appreciate the clever wordplay and social nods that sit just beneath the surface. The film's combination of universal themes and joyful presentation makes it a perfect conversation starter, especially for families. The questions it raises about belonging, environmental responsibility, family expectations, and cultural preservation can easily spark discussions without ever feeling preachy. Viewers might find themselves talking about the balance between city life and nature, the importance of protecting endangered spaces, or even the ways in which families sometimes resist change out of fear of losing their identity. The pacing, the humor, the music, the heartfelt family beats all work together to keep the audience fully engaged from start to finish. The film knows when to dazzle, when to make you laugh, and when to slow down just enough to let a tender moment settle in. Every scene feels like it's built to either entertain, connect, or ignite curiosity. And that blend is what keeps Rio 2 soaring in the hearts and minds of its audience long after the credits roll. When Rio 2 is placed side by side with other films in its genre, its franchise, and even within the broader library of Blue Sky Studios, it stands out for its playful energy, musical ambition, and vibrant world-building. But it also finds itself flying along some very familiar paths that many animated sequels tend to follow. Within its own franchise, Rio 2 takes a clear step into larger territory compared to the first film. Rio was a story rooted in personal discovery, a tightly focused journey about Blue finding his place and falling in love amidst the lively streets of Rio de Janeiro. Rio 2 expands the canvas, taking the characters out of their familiar city and plunging them into the untamed depths of the Amazon. This shift allows for grander set pieces, larger ensemble moments, and a deeper exploration of the natural world. The sequel is bigger, louder, and more crowded, and while it carries forward the charm of the original, it trades some of the tight emotional focus for sprawling jungle spectacle. When compared to other animated sequels like Madagascar, Escape to Africa, Kung Fu Panda 2, or Finding Dory, Rio 2 falls comfortably into that tradition of moving the story from a single setting to a broader, more exotic location. Much like how Madagascar 2 took its city-bound zoo animals back to their ancestral homeland, Rio 2 pulls its city-smart birds into the wild, asking them to adapt and find meaning in their roots. The formula is familiar, a journey of rediscovery, a clash between modern life and ancestral traditions, and a comedic villain whose pursuit drives the story forward. What sets Rio 2 apart is its total commitment to musical storytelling. While other sequels sprinkle songs as occasional breaks from the narrative, Rio 2 makes music a living, breathing part of the world. The jungle isn't just a backdrop, it's a stage, and every chase, competition, and showdown feels infused with rhythm. The inclusion of jungle dance battles, layered musical rivalries, and recurring song motifs positions Rio 2 closer to animated musicals like Sing or Happy Feet, where the music isn't just an accessory, it's woven directly into the character arcs and cultural expressions. When stacked against other Blue Sky Studios films, like the Ice Age series, Robots, or Ferdinand, Rio 2 is easily one of the studio's most visually extravagant and musically rich projects. Where Ice Age leaned into prehistoric comedy with a focus on physical gags and adventure, Rio 2 pours attention into building a sensory overload of color, sound, and movement. The pacing is quicker, the energy more sustained, and the musical DNA runs deeper. However, like the later Ice Age sequels, Rio 2 faces the same challenge of juggling a large ensemble cast. It brings back beloved side characters, introduces new jungle tribes, and builds subplots for nearly everyone, which sometimes causes the narrative to stretch itself thin. The sheer number of moving pieces can make the emotional beats feel a little lighter compared to the more focused emotional journeys of films like Ferdinand, which kept its story closely tied to its central character's personal growth. In terms of musical animated films, Rio 2 carves out its own space by diving deeply into Brazilian rhythms and musical traditions. While movies like The Lion King or Moana use music to highlight cultural landscapes, Rio 2 embraces its setting with a more playful, modern energy, blending samba, bossa nova, and carnival beats with comedic choreography and theatrical villain songs. It doesn't chase the epic ballads or sweeping anthems of Disney's biggest musicals. Instead, it thrives in its party-like atmosphere, where the songs are designed to keep the audience moving rather than to pause for grand declarations. Comparing Rio 2 to DreamWorks sequels like Kung Fu Panda 2 or How to Train Your Dragon 2 also highlights how Rio 2 plays its story with lighter stakes. Those sequels leaned into darker themes, deeper emotional scars, and more complex world-building, pushing their franchises into more mature territory. Rio 2 chooses to double down on fun, music, family hijinks, and flamboyant villains. It doesn't aim to be a weighty sequel. It wants to stay playful, colorful, and fast-paced. Its biggest risks are in how it piles on more characters, more locations, and more musical numbers, rather than diving into complicated emotional terrain. This decision makes Rio 2 stand out as a sequel that's less interested in reinvention and more focused on celebration. When looking at Carlos Saldanha's body of work, Rio 2 builds on the director's strengths in creating energetic, visually stunning worlds packed with fast-paced humor and heartfelt character dynamics. Saldanha, who also directed several Ice Age films, brings the same playful spirit and kinetic energy to Rio 2. But here, he cranks up the musicality and cultural specificity. While Ice Age relied heavily on slapstick and prehistoric gags, Rio 2 layers its humor with a more refined cultural rhythm, giving the film a unique pulse that separates it from the broader Blue Sky catalog. In the realm of family animation, Rio 2 confidently flies alongside films that offer global adventures and family-centric storytelling, but its dedication to music, cultural texture, and dazzling visuals gives it a voice that's hard to mistake for anything else. While it leans on familiar sequel structures, bigger setting, more characters, and a slightly chaotic narrative sprawl, it packs enough unique flavor to distinguish itself from the herd. It may not rewrite the rules of animated sequels, but it dances through its formula with enough rhythm, flair, and visual sparkle to make the journey feel like its own unforgettable parade. Rio 2 may flutter around with the energy of a light-hearted musical adventure, but hidden within its colorful feathers are layers of symbolism and visual metaphors that quietly give the story more depth. These subtle touches aren't shouted from the treetops. They're tucked into the visuals, the character arcs, and the rhythms of the jungle, waiting for sharp-eyed viewers to spot and enjoy. One of the most prominent symbols throughout the film is the jungle itself. On the surface, it's just the new setting, a wild, untamed place where Blue and his family must adapt. But the jungle stands in for something much more layered. It represents nature in its purest, most interconnected form. The dense trees, the woven vines, the intricate ecosystems all act as a living metaphor for family, community, and the idea that life thrives through connection. Every creature, every tree, every river seems to pulse in harmony, reminding viewers that nothing exists in isolation. This idea becomes especially powerful when the human loggers appear, machines tearing through the lush web of life. Their bulldozers become a striking metaphor for industrialization, disruption, and the careless unraveling of natural bonds. The jungle isn't just a backdrop. It is the heart, a living symbol of everything that Blue must come to respect, embrace, and protect. Blue's fanny pack is a small but recurring symbol loaded with meaning. It's not just a funny prop. It represents his attachment to the human world, his need for control, and his reliance on prepared solutions in a place where improvisation is the key to survival. His constant clinging to it shows his reluctance to fully let go of his city bird identity. As the story progresses, the fanny pack becomes less about utility and more about comfort, a physical reminder of Blue's resistance to change. His journey of loosening his grip on it mirrors his slow acceptance of jungle life, and his growth toward trusting his instincts over his gadgets. Nigel's character operates as a walking metaphor for bitterness and the craving for lost relevance. His inability to fly is not just a plot point. It symbolizes his broken connection to freedom, joy, and purpose. Every villainous plot he cooks up is a desperate attempt to rise again, to defy the physical and emotional weight that keeps him grounded. His dramatic flair, his oversized gestures, and his obsession with revenge all circle back to his aching desire to reclaim the wings that once defined him. His inability to soar becomes a poetic image of a character trapped by his own grudges and insecurities. Gabi, the tiny poison dart frog, is another clever symbol wrapped in humor. On the surface, she's just a love-struck sidekick, but her entire design plays with contrast and perception. She's small, cute, and seemingly harmless, yet she's deadly, a walking contradiction. Her unrequited love for Nigel mirrors her own inner conflict. She wants to connect, to be embraced, but her very nature is toxic. Gabi's arc dances on the edge of this irony. She longs to be close, but her touch can harm. She becomes a symbol of misguided devotion, a playful but poignant reminder that love, when twisted by obsession and self-delusion, can become destructive even if it comes from a genuine place. The soccer game in the jungle carries more than just competitive energy. It's a metaphor for adaptation and learning to play by new rules. Blue's desperate attempts to apply his structured, urban strategies to a wild, free-flowing game become a physical illustration of his struggle to fit into a world that doesn't respond to checklists or step-by-step guides. His awkwardness on the field, his missteps, and his ultimate shift toward intuitive play echo his broader character journey of releasing control and embracing the rhythm of the jungle. Music itself functions as a recurring metaphor for life's energy, connection, and identity. Each character, tribe, and environment carries its own unique rhythm and musical style. And these aren't just sonic decorations. They symbolize the heartbeat of each community. When characters sing and dance, they are not simply performing. They are expressing their place within the larger world. The jungle's music is spontaneous, communal, and instinctive, while Blue initially approaches music with the same calculated precision he brings to everything else. As he begins to find his rhythm and joins in the dance, it becomes a metaphor for his growth into someone who can move with the flow rather than against it. Nigel's villain song, filled with exaggerated theatricality and rhythmic wordplay, isn't just a comic highlight. It's a metaphorical stage for him to reclaim his lost spotlight. His entire performance is a visual cue that he is less interested in revenge as an outcome and more obsessed with being seen, heard, and remembered. The stage becomes his battlefield, and through his musical number, the film quietly pokes fun at the vanity of those who perform not for meaning, but for attention. Eduardo's strict jungle traditions, and his skepticism toward Blue symbolize the weight of cultural preservation, and the fear of losing identity in the face of change. His initial rejection of Blue is not just personal. It's a representation of how tightly some communities can cling to their ways, afraid that opening up to outsiders might dilute or erase what makes them unique. Eduardo's eventual acceptance of Blue serves as a symbolic bridge between tradition and modernity, showing that cultures can evolve and expand without losing their core. The human loggers themselves are painted without nuance, but this serves a symbolic purpose. They become faceless, nameless machines, symbols of blind consumption, greed, and disregard for balance. The fact that they are never deeply characterized makes them less about individual villains, and more about the broader, systemic forces that threaten natural spaces everywhere. They are not evil because of their personal choices. They are evil because they are part of a relentless, mechanical force that cuts through life without thought. The journey from Rio to the Amazon isn't just a physical relocation. It symbolizes the emotional distance Blue has to travel to understand his own family, heritage, and instincts. His flight into the jungle is a metaphor for leaving behind comfort, structure, and certainty in order to rediscover connection, intuition, and belonging. Even the birds' colors tell stories. The bright blue feathers of Blue's family stand out in the lush green jungle, symbolizing their initial status as outsiders, almost as if they are out of sync with their environment. As Blue integrates more with the jungle life, this visual contrast becomes less jarring, symbolizing his growing harmony with the world around him. The film's use of natural symbols, trees, vines, rivers, and animals, works as a constant reminder of interconnectedness. Vines that tangle, rivers that guide, and trees that shelter are not just part of the scenery. They subtly reinforce the message that life is about movement, support, and flow. Even the way characters swing, soar, and crash through these elements mirrors their emotional journeys. Sometimes they glide effortlessly, sometimes they get tangled, and sometimes they fall, only to be caught by something or someone else. Throughout Rio 2, the visual metaphors and symbols hum quietly beneath the joyful energy and musical spectacle, enriching the story with layers of meaning that reward curious viewers. Rio 2 holds a lively, colorful place within its own franchise, carrying forward the vibrant spirit and infectious energy of the first film while expanding its world, characters, and thematic layers in ways that give the series more depth. As the second chapter, Rio 2 doesn't just revisit familiar faces for the sake of nostalgia. It pushes the story into fresh territory, both literally and emotionally, taking the birds from the bustling city of Rio de Janeiro into the heart of the Amazon jungle. The first Rio film introduced audiences to Blue, a domesticated Spix's macaw who knew little about his origins, and was more comfortable with human inventions than with his own wings. That film focused on Blue's personal journey of discovering his identity, finding love, and learning to fly in the midst of an exciting city adventure. The story was intimate, with most of the emotional weight resting on Blue's growth from a nervous, housebound bird into a confident, free-flying companion for Jewel. It was a story of self-discovery wrapped in feathers, music, and street parades. Rio 2 builds on that foundation by shifting the focus from Blue's individual identity to a much larger theme of belonging, family, and cultural roots. Where the first film was about learning to fly, the sequel is about learning where to land. Blue's journey into the Amazon forces him to confront what it means to be part of a tribe, part of something bigger than his immediate family. The discovery of the hidden flock of blue macaws changes the narrative from one of endangered survival to one of reconnection and cultural rediscovery. It deepens the world by showing that Blue and Jewel are not the last of their kind, expanding the emotional stakes and reshaping what survival and legacy mean for these characters. Within the franchise, this sequel significantly broadens the scale. It adds more species, introduces new locations, and pulls in multiple storylines that stretch across family dynamics, environmental threats, and comically theatrical revenge plots. It becomes more of an ensemble story, weaving in the journeys of side characters like Nigel and Gabi, the antics of Rafael, Pedro, and Nico, and even the new relationships between Blue's children and their wild relatives. The narrative branches out in a way that makes the world of Rio feel more layered and expansive, a move that is often seen in sequels aiming to grow a franchise. Blue's development from the first film to the second mirrors the growth of the franchise itself. In Rio, Blue was learning to trust himself and step out of his comfort zone. In Rio 2, he's facing the challenge of balancing who he was with who he's becoming. His city bird habits and love for modern convenience clash with the raw, unpredictable life of the jungle. And this conflict is not just comedic, it's the driving force that pushes him to evolve further. It's a classic sequel structure that deepens the protagonist's arc while introducing new cultural layers to the story. The introduction of Eduardo, Jewel's father, adds generational tension that wasn't present in the first film. Eduardo embodies tradition, legacy, and a fierce connection to ancestral ways. His skepticism toward Blue and his insistence on jungle life bring new emotional challenges that tie directly into the sequel's broader exploration of cultural belonging. Within the franchise, Eduardo's presence signals a shift from focusing solely on individual survival to embracing the importance of heritage and community identity. The sequel also marks a clear evolution in the franchise's environmental commentary. While the first film touched on illegal animal trade, Rio 2 widens the lens to focus on deforestation and habitat destruction. The loggers become a faceless, industrial threat, symbolizing the larger, more systemic dangers that wildlife face. This shift in focus shows the franchise maturing, moving from personal rescue stories to more sweeping environmental battles. It gives Rio 2 a sense of urgency and relevance that aligns with real-world concerns about rainforest conservation and endangered species. In a way, the story cleverly parallels Blue's personal struggle to belong with the larger struggle of nature fighting to survive. Both the character arc and the environmental message are about preservation, preserving family, preserving culture, and preserving the jungle. Nigel's return in Rio 2 also contributes to the franchise's ongoing narrative by providing a familiar villain whose motivations have evolved. In the first film, Nigel's role as a bitter ex-performer introduced a comedic, but dangerous foil for Blue. In the sequel, Nigel's vendetta becomes more personal, and his theatrical revenge plot adds a thread of continuity that keeps the franchise connected. His over-the-top antics, paired with Gabi's obsessive loyalty, push the franchise deeper into playful villain territory, offering humor and danger that both echo and expand on the dynamics from the first film. The addition of Blue and Jewel's children provides a natural progression for the family theme introduced in Rio. It shows time passing and life expanding. The kids are not just background details. They actively engage with the jungle, forming their own bonds and challenging their parents' perspectives. Their presence signals the future of the flock, the continuation of a legacy that was on the brink of extinction in the first film. This generational layering gives the franchise room to grow and explore more family-driven narratives in potential future installments. The visual world of Rio 2 further enriches the franchise's identity. The first film dazzled with its depiction of Rio's carnival, but the sequel dives into the dense, pulsating life of the Amazon, introducing vivid greens, sprawling canopies, and a completely different kind of visual spectacle. The change in setting broadens the franchise's palette, showing that its world isn't confined to urban beauty, but extends deep into wild, untamed spaces filled with their own rhythms and challenges. The transition from cityscapes to jungle environments gives the franchise a sense of movement and adventure, constantly pushing its characters into new territories and asking them to adapt. Rio 2 contributes significantly to the overarching identity of the franchise by introducing more musical layers, broadening its environmental scope, and pushing its characters to explore what it means to belong, not just to a partner, but to a family, a community, and a cultural legacy. It doesn't simply repeat the beats of the first film. It dances with them, remixes them, and sends the story soaring into new skies filled with more voices, more challenges, and more life. This sequel fits within the tradition of animated franchises that grow from small, personal stories into larger explorations of world building, cultural identity, and environmental awareness, all while keeping the humor, music, and vibrant energy that made the first film take flight. When it comes to the budget and box office journey of Rio 2, the story behind the numbers is almost as lively and energetic as the film itself. Rio 2 was built with a substantial budget, estimated to be around $103 to $110 million. That's a hefty sum, but when you watch the movie, you can see exactly where every dollar went. The film is a visual carnival, bursting with color, detailed character animations, dense jungle landscapes, and some of the most intricate crowd scenes in animated films at the time. The transition from the detailed streets of Rio de Janeiro in the first film to the expansive, layered textures of the Amazon in Rio 2 clearly required an even more ambitious production effort. Animating the jungle isn't just about tossing in some green backgrounds. Every vine, every fluttering leaf, every ripple in the river had to be meticulously crafted to make this world feel alive, and the budget definitely worked hard to bring that immersive environment to the screen. The film also invested heavily in its soundscape, particularly in the musical sequences that drive much of the story's rhythm and energy. The soundtrack, packed with Brazilian beats and large ensemble pieces, was produced at a scale that required detailed coordination between the animation and the music. The synchronization of the dance battles, the carnival numbers, and even the comedic villain songs was not a simple add-on. It was a central part of the film's identity, and the budget had to stretch to accommodate that level of musical complexity. So in terms of production quality, Rio 2 definitely feels like a film that matched its budget. It's polished, energetic, and packed with visual detail that holds up even when compared to its contemporaries from larger studios. Now when it hit the box office, Rio 2 had a strong financial performance globally. While it didn't quite match the groundbreaking success of the first Rio, it still pulled in impressive numbers, earning over $500 million worldwide. That's a return that made it a clear win for Blue Sky Studios and its distribution partner. The film's appeal extended far beyond North America. In fact, international audiences played a massive role in its box office success. The bright colors, the music, the humor, and the universal themes of family and adventure resonated widely, especially in markets where the vibrant celebration of culture felt particularly connected. Countries like Brazil, where the story finds its heart, gave the film an extra layer of local enthusiasm that helped boost its profile and its box office earnings in those regions. The marketing campaign for Rio 2 was also a big part of its box office story. The promotional strategy leaned heavily into the musical elements and the fun, family-friendly atmosphere. Trailers and TV spots spotlighted the jungle adventure, the colorful dance-offs, and the return of fan-favorite characters like Blue and Nigel. The marketing team knew that the visual spectacle was one of the film's greatest assets, and they pushed that energy front and center. Merchandise, musical tie-ins, and cross-promotional campaigns helped keep the film in the public eye, particularly leading up to spring and summer release windows when families were looking for something light, energetic, and visually appealing. The return of the film's recognizable voice cast was also heavily emphasized in marketing, which worked to reignite interest from fans of the first film. Having familiar voices like Jesse Eisenberg and Hathaway and will.i.am back in the mix added to the sense of continuity and excitement for audiences who had already fallen in love with the first Rio. Audience reception played a key role in the film's financial success. The film delivered exactly what its target audience wanted: bright visuals, catchy music, energetic pacing, and plenty of humor that worked for both kids and adults. Word of mouth spread quickly, especially among families, and the musical-heavy structure meant that songs from the film found life outside of theaters, keeping the Rio 2 brand fresh and relevant even after the initial release. While critics had mixed feelings about whether Rio 2 offered anything substantially new beyond bigger settings and more elaborate set pieces, audiences didn't seem to mind. The crowd came for the music, the laughs, the color, and the beloved characters, and they got them in generous doses. The financial success of Rio 2 was a result of a perfect blend of strong international appeal, savvy marketing that leaned into the film's biggest strengths, and a production budget that was wisely spent on visual and musical craftsmanship that audiences could immediately feel. Even though it didn't smash records like some other animated giants released in the same era, Rio 2 carved out its own strong, profitable lane. The film's box office journey reflects its ability to fly confidently through a competitive market by offering a feast of color, rhythm, and family-centered storytelling that connected with viewers around the world. The combination of careful budgeting, global marketing appeal, and audience-friendly spectacle allowed Rio 2 to land as a financial success that comfortably held its place in Blue Sky Studios' legacy of lively, visually rich animated films. Rio 2 is the kind of movie that was built to be experienced in all its bright, musical, larger-than-life glory, and finding the perfect way to watch it can seriously elevate the adventure. When it first flew into theaters, it was a spectacle designed for the big screen, with the colors practically leaping off in vivid bursts, and the sound wrapping around audiences like a rolling Brazilian carnival. Watching it in theaters back then was like sitting in the front row of a parade, with samba beats shaking the seats and jungle greens filling every corner of your vision. But now, with theaters no longer hosting its first-run showings, the magic of Rio 2 can be rediscovered through streaming platforms, digital rentals, and physical copies like Blu-ray and DVD, and it's still just as much of a party. Streaming the film is one of the easiest ways to dive straight into the story today. The bright visuals translate well on home screens, especially if you're watching on a high-definition television that can really capture the kaleidoscope of jungle greens, tropical blues, and neon-colored birds. A good sound system or a solid pair of headphones can make a surprising difference here, because the soundtrack is absolutely packed with high-energy beats, playful rhythms, and rich layers of percussion that really deserve to be heard with full clarity. The film's songs aren't just background tunes, they're a living, breathing part of the world, and feeling the music pulse around you can instantly pull you into the heart of the Amazon. Digital rentals give a bit more flexibility for those who want to create their own mini-movie night experience. Renting it in high definition and projecting it onto a bigger screen at home, or setting up a cozy couch marathon with some favorite snacks, can recreate the kind of immersive, family-friendly vibe that Rio 2 thrives in. It's the kind of movie that works best when the volume is turned up, the lights are low, and everyone's ready to move with the rhythm. Watching it on the go, maybe on a tablet or laptop, can still deliver the fun, especially if you're looking for a pick-me-up during travel or downtime, but the visuals and music really shine when they have the space to stretch out. If possible, watching it in a setting where the sound can wrap around you and the colors can burst to life makes a noticeable difference. The film is also available on physical formats, and for those who love bonus content like behind-the-scenes features, music videos, and director's commentary, Blu-ray editions offer a deeper dive into how this vibrant world was crafted. Watching the creative process and learning how the music was woven into the story can actually make a second viewing even more enjoyable, as it adds layers of appreciation for the detailed work behind the fast-paced fun. The best way to experience Rio 2 is definitely in a space where you can feel free to tap your feet, sing along, and laugh out loud. Whether it's a family gathering, a kid's sleepover, or even a solo dance party viewing, the movie's infectious energy asks the audience to be part of the celebration. The jungle setting, the musical competitions, the big ensemble numbers, they all come to life when watched with others who can join in on the fun. Watching it with family adds an extra layer of enjoyment, because the story about connection, belonging, and embracing family traditions resonates more when shared with loved ones. For viewers revisiting the film, watching it back-to-back with the first Rio can also create a full-circle experience that highlights how the characters grow, how the settings shift, and how the music evolves between the two films. The seamless way the sequel picks up from where the first left off makes this kind of double-feature viewing especially satisfying, allowing you to watch Blue's journey from a nervous pet in the city to a family bird navigating the jungle in one flowing adventure. Wherever you choose to watch Rio 2, whether streaming it on the big screen at home, renting it digitally for a weekend movie night, or popping in a Blu-ray to soak up all the extras. The film brings its best when you let yourself fully step into its rhythm. The colors deserve to fill the room. The music begs to bounce off the walls, and the comedy hits harder when shared. It's a movie designed not just to be seen, but to be felt, sung, and enjoyed with a little extra volume and a lot of heart.